Welcome to Shootin' the Bull, the official podcast of the Championship Darts Circuit. A casual conversation about the sport of darts, talking about topics of the day from a North American perspective, featuring a cast of characters and contributors from the CDC roster and the world of darts. Now here's your host, Anthony Eugenia.
And we are live. We're back with episode 2 here from the CDC studios. Welcome, everybody. Welcome on in. If you're in the chat, we've got our own Nils Nelson in there monitoring, and we welcome your feedback and your questions. We'll get to that later in the show. Please like and share this show on all our social media platforms, and welcome to the audio listeners when we put this up on archive on all of your favorite podcast apps. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay. My first contributor tonight. His dulcet tones are quickly becoming the backdrop to darts in North America, and I have it on good authority. His first name is actually not Seth. Let me bring on Sean Green. Welcome, Sean.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Hey, it's great to be here. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me on episode 2. It's going to be great.
All right. Sean is going to be joined by a longtime color analyst for the Championship Dart Circuit. In 2018, he was voted the best fake Irish accent. It's Mr. Mark Taggart.
Hey guys, I didn't actually get that award, by the way, so it must be lost in the mail somewhere.
It's in the mail. It's in the mail. We won't let everybody hang in there. That's an inside joke. We did when we had Mark on. There were people like in the chats for a broadcast going, "Why is this guy trying to put on an Irish accent?" It was like, "Are you kidding me?" But my man is about as Irish as you can get. Wonderful gentleman, wonderful friend. So is Sean. Thank you guys for joining me tonight, episode 2. Really thrilled of the kickoff. We did episode 1 with my partners Peter and David, and a really good response to that show. So thanks everybody for that, and we hope we've got a good show for you coming tonight. So let's jump in with Sean first, and let's talk a little bit about CDC's history in Indianapolis. We've been there since year 1. We finished up our inaugural year in 2015. Continually come back. We were there during COVID. It was a safe haven for us when we were able to put on events. We sent players over to the World Championship. Danny Baggish got his chance to go play in the Worlds in Indianapolis. This year, we've got a lot of stuff. We're there twice over the tour. Cross-border PopCon, which we'll get into in a minute, but give us some perspective from the indie side, what it means to have the Championship Darts Corporation come in with these events and opportunities.
You said it best there with your last word there. It's an opportunity, right? So it's a huge opportunity for people from indie to stay pretty local, not have to travel as much or pay those, extra fees to play in the CDC events for travel restrictions, especially with a couple times going to Chicago as well this season. So the goal is that hopefully it just continues to grow. I'm so proud of my indie darts community. It's why, I got into live streaming in the first place, is because I just wanted to really promote my players in indie. And, I got to be honest with you, it's a little bit heartbreaking to see some of those guys, some of those top level guys that aren't really taking advantage of it like I would really want them to. But, we have Danny Lobby, who's about an hour and a half south of us. Of course, Ohio and Illinois and Michigan, we're kind of right there with a good hub of great dart players from years past. Yeah. So it's an honor to have it here.
Danny's always been the tentpole of Indianapolis. From the very beginning, Danny's been with us. As you said, that part of the Midwest has always been a real big part of the CDC's history with, Larry Butler and the other players from Ohio. So let's bring Mark back in, and let's jump into, we've got the Cross-Border Darts Challenge, the second year. So let's look back last year, both of you guys, a little recollection of what we saw. You're both on site, supplied us with great sounds to go with the great pictures of that tournament. We saw there's 2 components to it to bring everybody up to speed. It's based on the rankings, so we invite 8 U.S. players and 8 Canadian players, and it is a singles tournament, right? But they get matched up in the first round, where every game is a U.S. versus Canada thing. So we added a wrinkle to where every match won earned a point for the side. So we saw Canada come out really big last year in that first night, right? Tell me some of those players and some of the things that we saw last year, if you can recollect any of that stuff.
All I really remember is the matchups were just coin flips the whole way, and it's a testament really to the strength and depth of the 16 that get chosen for those types of events. And it'll be the same this year. I was looking through the roster for this year, and it becomes a little repetitive when you're like, oh, I'm not sure how this could go. Someone's going to have to get out of the gate early. It becomes a bit rhetoric. But in all honesty, out of the 16, if someone said you got to really put your mortgage on who's going to win this thing, very, very difficult to do, because, over an evening and a bit, someone could just sort of turn it on and it's over. So, really for me, the matches that I was involved in last year, I just remember them going back and forward, and you thought one was over, and then the next minute it would switch. And then you'd be like, well, this is relatively short format, so how many twists can we get? And before you know it, you're in last legs etc. territory. And the drama is really, really good. I love it.
As an analyst, we always push, as you said, a lot of these games they were 50-50 down the middle a lot of times, and it's we push you as an analyst. People want to hear which way to go, but if they were truly matchups that were tough to call, we saw big performances. The Canadian side from Warnock, Jim Long, John Norman Jr., and of course Jeff Smith. But a real impressive performance from them. So, Sean, give me what you can recollect from the U.S. side. We had big performances. What?
Yeah, no. The one thing that I'm going to remember is the freight train that was Jeff Smith on Saturday, right? I mean, didn't lose a single leg the entire night, and just kind of steamrolled his way all the way through the finals. And I know that the finals was difficult for the gentleman, Jim Long, because at that point he had already known that he qualified for the U.S. Darts Masters. So for him, he was like, cool, I've done what I needed to do. And, it allowed, I think, Jeff to kind of continue on a roll. But yeah, I definitely remember that more than most of it, just how quick those matches went on Saturday, just because of
in all fairness, the U.S. side didn't give us a lot coming out of that first night, but there were some players that played well. So let's take a look at the lineups for this coming cross border that takes place April 12th and 13th in Michigan City, Indiana. So there's your lineup and your flyer, and obviously you can, if you want to join us, go to Champ Darts and you'll get the ticket link. So those names on there are going to be seeded 1 to 4 on each side. So Spellman, Bunce, Gates, Lauby are going to be your seeds on the U.S. side. Cameron, Taylor, Long, and Way will be the Canadian seeds 1 to 4, right? And we will have a bracket draw on roughly April 1st. So we'll do the draw, and we will draw the 4 Canadian players to play against the 4 U.S. seeds, so you will be guaranteed a matchup. So a lot of impressive names, a really impressive lineup here on both sides of the ledger. You've got a lot of players in here that have performed extremely well in the last 12 to 18 months, not only with the CDC, but overseas. You saw Spellman, Bunce over in the PDC World Championship. We've seen a good amount of these players play in Modus seniors for Gates and Cameron. Jim Long. Jim Long's gone over and played so well. So you guys take a look at there, and let me know who are you looking forward to seeing. We don't have matchups yet. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. But in terms of particular players, who do we think is going to be a real standout? Let me go to Sean first.
All right. That's a great question. Obviously, top of the list there are the PDC pros that are on the U.S. side, right? Jules Van Dongen and Danny Lobby are just getting to play a lot of great competition right now. So when they head over to this and they're playing on those stages and things like that, they'll be kind of used to it at this point in time. And I think a lot of the Americans are. Stowe Bunce is our defending Continental Cup champion. How do you not just have him coming out of the gate firing? He did so well over in the UK. And I know that he has been itching to get back on a stage since the World Darts Championship. It's never a good draw to have the very first match out the gate in the World Darts Championship. But, Kevin Duetz came in there and just played phenomenal and almost beat Michael Smith and ruined his parade. So hopefully Stowe is ready to go. I think that he is. And I know that that's going to be exciting. Then Canadian side, I mean, to see those new faces, right? Sylvain Bordeaux, Jake McMillan, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Jake McMillan, you know, in this event, we saw his, make a big impact at MSG. And Sylvain, as you said, is coming out of Quebec. So Mark, give me a couple of players that you think people should keep an eye on, and who really has substantial chances of raising the second cross-border darts challenge championship.
So one of the ones, he's a favorite of mine. I talk about him all the time because his scoring is off the charts, is Jacob Taylor. Jacob really, if he is in that groove for the evening, could put up 3-digit averages, and people could find it very difficult over that 2 days to beat him in that type of format from the Canadian side. David Cameron, no brainer in many ways, but he absolutely has got the pedigree to go and sort of cause a lot of damage as well. And then, quite rightly, Sean's already mentioned some of the more sort of high profile players, but Alex Spellman, the fact that we're not mentioning him because he doesn't have a PDC2 card, same thing. If you put Spellman and Jacob Taylor up in the first round and you ask me to pick one, I'm going to go on mute, and probably my mute button is it's not going to unmute itself, quite honestly. There's just one of my notes that I've got is lots and lots of tasty matchups. It is the takeaway that I've got for what we're going to see for this tournament.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be an exciting draw because there's good players all the way down. So seeds on each side, there's not going to be any easy matches. And what makes this also fun is, a lot of players, all of these players now, or most of them, as I'm looking at the scroll come through, we've seen them all on international stages. So that gives us as the CDC the opportunity to offer up a product that we hope that international dart fans will enjoy. They've seen almost all of these names on Modus. The ones that haven't played Modus are because they've had a PDC tour card and such. But so you've got players that have had experience and exposure. And quite honestly, I was thinking about this recently. It's I help out with most of the social media for the CDC. It's actually a good problem that I'm starting to lose track these days on who's playing overseas for North Americans, right? I'll wake up on a Monday and it's, already 2 hours into Modus and it's like, oh my goodness, so-and-so's playing there. But we have weekends where it's, Long is at a seniors thing, and before Lauby got a card, he's up in Scotland playing an event, and then there's Jules and Matt playing a PDC thing, and Jeff at the time, and it's pretty wild and awesome that you can lose track of how many North American players are playing at events over in Europe. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, as a fan of North American darts, which first and foremost, that's what I am and what I've continued to be. It's fun. It's so much fun to wake up early and have something to do as you're getting ready for school or getting ready for work. Just to, sit there and watch those guys play. It's an absolute treat. And it's one that I think we're lucky that we're now starting to grow that game over here to the where not only are we just going over there and just rooting for the best, to happen and, maybe something good will happen, but we're now invested heavily because we know these guys can win. And that's the really cool part for me.
Well, and Mark, you know as well as anybody that we talk about it a lot, but we're proud of it, and we're proud of what the players have accomplished. That there's the big wins are still to be had in a big way, but the performances are a lot better. There's no I don't think anymore, a feeling that, that the players are going to be pushovers or, mugs, and they're not just making up the numbers. They're, going over, competing real well. And I have to always add the part that it's not meant to be disrespectful to some of the other players that had gone over. The platforms weren't built to prepare them correctly, so players got put in situations that they just weren't ready for. They had the skill, they had the fortitude to do it. They just weren't in the right position. Did we lose Mark, by the way? I just want to check.
Yes.
I still have Sean.
Yeah, no, here we go. Mark is back.
Here we got, it's our man behind the scenes, Jeff McMahon. All right, we got Mark back. So Mark, I was, just getting your perspective, because I know you've always had a good take on sort of perspective from overseas on, what the American and Canadian scene was. And quite honestly, it's been different. Both nations have presented differently overseas. But, these days, I truly feel that, when players get offered up, the player that's playing them knows that it's an effort is needed now to get past most North American fare. Would you not agree?
More than an effort. It to me, the one that I'll sort of mention, I think you probably already mentioned, is modus. The players that are going over there now, they're not going over just to sort of play in the group stage and say, oh, this is a nice experience. They're going over to actually win their group, to win their money, to win the airfare that took them there in the first place, and compete at the highest level, and then progress in as far as they possibly can. And we've seen it. Like Jake McMillan there a couple of weeks ago, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but I will say out of nowhere, just took to it like a duck to water and had a great showing.
Absolutely. And to be fair, Modus isn't interested in people making up the numbers. They don't want people, they're not going to bring in international players who are just, they can do that. There's plenty of UK players that they can get down the road to fill things out. So, they have a vested interest in putting quality on their stage. And we've seen that from North American players.
The flip side of that is the players now that are their time, week in, week out from the sort of the UK, Scotland, Ireland, whatever it may be. Once they see those North American names on the bracket, they know they're in for a tough weekend, a tough evening, because the days are gone now. The easy draws are gone. The people getting involved in those competitions, even the seniors as well, where we've seen Jim and various people go over there and really, really get stuck in. It's phenomenal to see. And then, we've got the other side of the coin where Matt constantly is in battles on the PDC side, Jules as well. Danny's now, he was already doing it in every single competition he could play in the UK and in Europe. And now he's just expanded that out into the PDC as well and continues. We saw it at the Players. He had a great run there, and none of it's a surprise to anyone.
Just this week. Yeah.
Quite honestly. Yeah,
so if you want to see, look at all that talent that we've just sort of laid out in front of you. And so you're going to see all of that in Michigan City, April 12th to the 13th. So we really urge you to come join us. You can get tickets at champdarts.com. There's also information about hotels on the site, and we'll go into a little bit more of that later. We've got a great scroll going across the screen to give you all that information. So come join us in just a few weeks for the second annual CDC Cross-Border Darts Challenge. So we're going to stay in the state, and we're going to pivot a little bit to something that seems like it's going to be just super duper fun. We've got the opportunity to bring CDC and players to PopCon, and PopCon is a massive pop culture, media, movies, comics convention that happens right there in Indianapolis, and that's April 26th to the 28th. Sean is going to be on site as part of our team, and Mark's been privy to some of what we're putting together. And so, Sean, start us off. Give me, what you expect to see to, have this big convention, and people who aren't dart players, dart fans being exposed to the game, and that's going to be the ultimate goal, is to convey them and hook them into what we love.
Yeah, I mean, an average of 30,000 people are going to show up to this weekend or that weekend, and it's huge. How many people are going to get exposed to the game for the very first time, to have that immersive experience too, with those 4 awesome pros that are going to be coming in to help us out with that, and then with the people on site. I just think it's going to be really cool, and it's a way. Whenever I talk to kids first about joining joining darts, and getting into our dart club at school, is, they have no idea just how big darts is, how big it can be. And so it's really cool to see us we have a giant booth next to some really cool actors and actresses that are, Rufio's going to be there. Come on now. That's like a childhood dream of mine to meet Rufio. You kidding me? So I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really is going to be just a opportunity for us to have a great time and show people just how amazingly fun this game can be.
Yeah, and Mark, what we hope to accomplish is, we're going to have the players there playing a little bit, helping people come in to, learn the game. We've got Alex Spellman, Jim Long, Jason Watt, and Jules Van Dongen. So, all guys that are very apt to come over and help people learn the game, be comfortable with playing. So they're going to have a couple of, expo matches, and then there'll be a board where people can come experience the game, play games, prizes, that sort of thing. And then the thing that we want to get across is that we hope is going to be a natural marriage is the what's the word for it? The dressing up aspect of a pop culture convention, right? So the fancy dress, the costumes, all that sort of stuff. So we want that light bulb to go off, to go like, really? I can show up at a dart event in a Chewbacca costume? Like, this is awesome. So, Mark, can you, like, a sport that we love, what could be the potential of how cool is something like that?
I think it's genius, and I think we're at that sort of crossroads here in the States. We've seen all the press and all the airtime that Luke Littler's got recently here in the States. He's been on so many sort of sports broadcasts, and not even sports, even beyond that. But I think, darts in the UK is an entertainment business. It's a night out. It's a spectacle. It's something that, even beyond the actual sporting event that's happening on the stage, there's lots of subplots. There's lots of other ways to get involved. The players today have got personas. They've got alter egos, if you will. They've got, it's beyond even just the nickname, where, it's a staple that you and I and many people grew up with, that, some people got a nickname whether they liked it or not, whether they even wanted it. Then it became a thing. Then it became a walk-on song. Then there's a candelabra. Then there's lighting. Then there's, before you know it, you're into the place where it's now, oh my God, we can fill an arena with 10,000 people, and there might be 2,000 people watching the darts, quite honestly. You both have lived these live events. You've been in the arenas. Sean, you were at the Worlds just not so long ago.
Yep.
People may not even be looking anywhere near where the sport's taking place, but that's the next level of what the game is. And in addition to the talent, the competition, how impressive that whole piece of it is, the sporting drama, there's so many other elements to it. And I think it really is an awesome avenue to open that door.
Yeah, Exactly. It's this weird mix of you need a good product on stage. You need compelling sport. You need the players to be playing at a good level. So when you're in the middle of having a great time, when you glance up, you always want to expect, you want the great product to be there waiting for you, if that makes any sense, right? While you're in the middle of singing, dancing, having a great time, like, you sort of glance up and see that high checkout or the 180, so that sort of takes care of itself. And then the crowd comes up behind it. And that makes what you said is a night out. And that's what, to dip back into the cross-border thing a little bit, that's what we're trying to do. That's why we, urge everybody to come on out. If the sport itself as a whole means anything to you, if you want to see us get there, then it's your turn to contribute, to buy a ticket and get in there and sing. You don't have to dress like a chicken, but if it's in the closet, then you go with it, right?
Exactly. It doesn't hurt at all. No, that was honestly,
it does not hurt at all. So again, same sort of thing. We've got all the information that's scrolling down. So PopCon is, it's a big open convention, so open to the public. So if you want to come to just see us, that's wonderful. Come on down. If you want to see us and then get exposed to the greater convention, that's all the better. So check out popconindy.com as it's coming across your screen. You can go to champdarts.com as well and get that information. So we're really excited to see what happens at PopCon, and we want everybody to come out and really look forward to bringing back reports and at the next episode of lots of cool stuff at PopCon. And our producer KJ has really done an awesome job of lining a lot of stuff that it seems even more and more things are unfolding at PopCon, opportunities to get exposure and turn people on to the game. So real exciting stuff in April. So let's stay in Indy again. As we talked about, a lot of CDC stuff in Indy. Well, it's going to give us a chance we're going to finish in Indy, and then we'll segue into our second segment, which is we're going to talk some PDC stuff, U.S. Masters in New York. Now, there's an opportunity for the darting public to earn spots in MSG, right? So May 17th to the 19th, again, Indianapolis, boom. We're focusing Indianapolis early in the year here, right? So we've got the CDC Weekend 1, Championship Darts Circuit Weekend 1. We're going to have our first two events, and those are tour card holders only. So the best of the best, from North America. So that's a reason to come on by and support and check that stuff out anyway. But in addition, as you see on your screen, we're going to hold two chances for people to earn spots to go play at MSG. So we're going to have two open qualifiers to open to anybody in North America that qualifies as a North American player under PDC rules, and that just means either citizenship or the proper residency, and you can come play Friday night and Saturday night, and the winners of each will get a spot at MSG. Plus, there'll be a little order of merit. So the player who does the best over the two will then earn a spot at MSG. So, we go into year 10, kicking off with two really amazing events in the cross border and some exposure PopCon. But then we get into the nuts and bolts, right, guys? And we're talking to two of the main guys, who travel the country, help us out, bring their expertise to what we put on in the the sausage making, if you will, the grind of the tour. So the tour gets kicked off that weekend in May, right, Sean? Give me
it's the best.
It's an exciting thing, right? Because we've got 5 weekends this year, 14 events, and it's one of those things. Right now, here we are in spring training of baseball. The same thing. It's that the excitement of promise of it's all these players starting at the same spot in Indianapolis with chances at glory.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to be the rising star this year, right? Last year, I would argue that it was Jake McMillan. Jacob Womack kind of came out from nowhere after his great Evolution Tour and Youth Tour experience and just dominated weekend 1. But Jake McMillan was that kind of unknown player who got a shot at Madison Square Garden. And then, of course, 2 years ago, you had Doug Boehm, who kind of did the same thing, kind of came out of the woodworks. We didn't even know how to pronounce his last name, Boehm, when he was running through that U.S. Darts Masters qualifier right out the gate, which I thought was hilarious because I asked him, I was like, how do you pronounce your last name? He goes, everyone says Boehm. I said, that's not what I said. I said, how do you pronounce it? He goes, well, it's Boehm. I was like, all right.
Yes.
All right. Well, fine. Now I know. So, who's it going to be this year? That's the exciting part, right? It's always great to see those top level players that are going to perform and get better and better. And I'm excited to see how much better it's going to be this year versus last year and the year before. Because I think those guys just continue to raise those averages, raise those numbers. But, who is going to be that newcomer that comes on and just comes kind of out of nowhere to make the top 16 and has a run at the Continental Cup. It's such a great season. I can't wait.
It's exciting, Mark. For it's all of these possibilities of what's to come. The real work gets underway in Indy in May. To earn those points that really give you opportunities. Because coincidentally, we finish up the sort of World Cup chase right in Indy. You've got 2 U.S. players who have cards, so Jules and Danny will comprise the team. Matt's going to anchor the Canadian team. So the player at the top of the order of merit coming out of Indianapolis on the Canadian side would join him. Now, granted, if you look it up, David Cameron has a pretty substantial lead, but it's still in play. And those are the things that players play for. Like, believe it or not, you earn points now. It has an impact in a year's time, right? 12, 18 months down the road. So it's a wonderful thing to get things kicked off in Indianapolis, Mark.
Yeah, no, the players are very aware of all the carrots that are out there and the fruits of playing on the tour, traveling, being involved, participating in each event that you can get to, because the old catchphrase, points make prizes, and there's so many prizes on offer to the players now, and that's a testament to the CDC and just sort of how serious the rest of the world takes the participation of the North Americans to play in these. But it all starts, like you said, in those sort of events where you got to sort of get in there, get started, and start making a run, accumulate some of those points, and then see where you're at as you sort of the year unfolds and each event unfolds. Because people move around, people can't make events, people get pulled into certain events that they suddenly they can't make it, and anyone that thinks every now and again, well, this is a shoe-in. Sometimes that doesn't happen. We've seen it happen.
No,
where things have,
and it's always good for the psyche too, right? You always want to get off to a good start. There's a lot of room, as we see. We'll go through the circuit in a second. There's room to recover, but it's always good for the psyche and the confidence to get out of the gate early and well, right?
If you can lay a marker down in the first couple of events, and once you start going to the next events, people are already like, well, this person was hard to beat in events 1 and 2. You've got a target on your back, but also you've got that sort of little bit of an imposing figure to yourself, and you're clocking up the points as you go. So, getting out of the gate early, to your point, is super important. And, Sean alluded to it as well. You've got the new tour card holders where you're always wanting to see where they're at. The enthusiasm's there. There's a bit of a wild card sort of fact. It's always sort of, they can throw lots of spanners in the works quite early on. When you think you've got things sussed out, and you do put your name, you put your sort of get off the fence and pick a winner. Suddenly you're like, well, I couldn't pronounce his name a minute ago, but deep runs and winning things.
There he is in a final, right? As Mark and Sean have alluded to, in our off season in the winter, we offer, and we actually had one today, we offer Q schools around the country in conjunction with a lot of different great tournaments, and that's how players earn tour cards. So, we finish up in the fall, and a certain number of players, top 48 from last year, retained. And if you weren't in the top 48, you've got to go back out and earn a card. Or if you're a new player with aspirations to join us, you get out there in a Q school and and you earn a card. Still a couple left. I'll still keep shilling. champdarts.com. Go check it out. But like they said, that's another great feature of that first weekend, is to see these new faces. Oh wow, he came out through Syracuse, or he won the Shediac, Q school, or what have you. So they won there. I looked at the results. He beat 1 or 2 good players on his way. Now let's see what happens when they walk into the room, with the big boys, and as Mark said, sometimes a lot of, it's like, woo, there's some talent here, and boom, they're in the quarterfinals before you know it. So let's take a look at that graphic again, Jeff. Just pull that up. Go ahead, Mark.
Just one last piece.
Something to say?
Yeah, back in Philadelphia several years ago, myself and you in the booth, and there was a person called Jules Van Dongen running riot. And I just remember looking at you and you looking at me and going, wow.
Yes, I remember.
Matt Campbell, same thing.
Well, most famously, like Darren gets teased for it, but Darren was going into the final getting interviewed, and he's like, "Who's Matt Campbell?" I mean, we all know now, but that weekend, it was like he's like, "Who's Matt Campbell?" But Matt Campbell just, it was a Rhinos charge that weekend, and he's never looked back.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
The amazing stuff. Yeah.
It's awesome, and those twists are what make it so compelling, even to watch. On the streams, to watch those twists and turns.
And as Mark said, we want everybody to come see us for the cross border. If you're coming, be aware that the hotel deadline is March 26th. So get on our site, champdarts.com, get the link, and you can, come stay for the cross border. So don't miss out on the great deal that we've got lined up for you. But we're also going to offer, we will have broadcasts at each and every event. We'll have the cross-border broadcast. And just as everyone's seeing right there, here's the road to the Continental Cup, the road to glory in North America. It goes through Indiana, goes through Illinois. We've got a weekend 4 that is just about booked, and then we finish up with a big championship. So lots of twists and turns coming over over 2024. So stay tuned, keep tabs on all our social media, and these two great guys that we're enjoying tonight are going to be a big part of their analysis, weave you through the storyline, and we always appreciate the work they do, and it's a lot of fun. As Mark said, we always have a lot of fun in the booth, because when those storylines and those games are unfolding in front of you, it's just easy. We love this. So when it's happening there, you just look at each other like, wow. I mean, what a big moment that was. What a big moment. So let's now move on a little bit. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I did do all the due diligence, do all the all of the proper stuff. We want to plug everything. We talked about the hotel for cross border, so make sure you join us, and the tickets at Champ Darts. Also PopCon at champdarts.com. You can find all the links there. So we hope to see you there. So now let's move on to as we mentioned, the PDC US Darts Masters, right? So we talked about how you can get there, but now let's talk about who you might face if you make it to the theater at Madison Square Garden. Look at this murderer's row. Let's bring up the graphic. Well, sorry we lose Sean there for a second, but let's keep that graphic up for a bit. I mean, Mark, I'll go to you first. You follow social media like I do, and you want the best names, but we did see some moaning and groaning, like, it's just the Premier League. It's the whole Premier League lineup. Well, yeah, it's New York City. Some years they do some twists and turns and give other players, opportunities, but you can't really argue with the names on the left side of that poster in terms of the star power, because they really are trying to knock it out of the park and sell every seat out. Last year, late in the week leading up to the US Masters, they had a third section that they opened up. Ticket sales were so good, but I know that a big desire to fill it. And I mean, how do you not fill it up with basically the Premier League? So, give me your take on that, Mark. I mean, you can't really say that any of those guys shouldn't be there, but is there a debate on would there be some others to be brought in? And especially
it's very
hard. Let's say in New York.
It's very difficult to say that one of those players sort of shouldn't be there. Sometimes you go down the path where you try to find someone that's quote unquote local that might sort of add an extra couple of 100 sort of butts on seats just through a different type of affiliation. I don't know if you'd necessarily have that here in New York City. So to your point, I think what they've done is they've just went with the best of the best that they can bring in and put in as strong a lineup as they possibly can with all the subplots of every Thursday. These guys, knocking 10 bells out of each other on every Thursday night. And
now,
all
what's
that
your take on? Yep. What's your take on, let's say, because they, traveling from different parts of the world, and so now New York in particular, you and I being very familiar with the New York community, the Irish community is massive, right? So, do you think though that a consideration, could be made to include one of the established Irish players or up and coming players like Josh Rock or a Gurney? Does that move the needle a little bit in the Irish community in New York in particular?
It's such an awesome question. My gut answer is no, because I don't know if there's anyone compelling enough to drive that additional attendance beyond sort of your top tier stars. Mm-hmm. I wish the answer would be yes. Maybe Josh a year ago when he was sort of in that.
I was thinking the same thing. If Rock kept that trajectory, right, and was as hot as a pistol as it seemed he was, then there would have been massive outcry to see him in New York.
The one thing now, so there's two elements that I think might help spur on. One, and I don't know if this could ever happen just logistically, is have it nearer St. Patrick's Day, because the influx of Irish and UK folks that come over to party around that time frame, they might extend. Maybe not. This is just all theoretical in my head. That's one. And then the other one is having a guaranteed tri-state representative on the North America side might spur on. I'm not going to mention names, but we've even seen it here when certain people, get into tournaments, their entourage now appears. Multiply that by 50.
It's exactly. It moves the needle a bit to sell tickets. So whether it's tri-state, East Coast, something to that effect, I get the sentiment. And you saw just talking about St. Patrick's Week that just this evening, the PDC shows up in Dublin, right?
Yeah.
So now, go ahead.
No, it's just there's no right answer, but I know regardless of how it's going to play out, we focused on the PDC side of that. The next sort of four that fill the other spots, including what's there already, it's going to be, I think, the best that we've had so far, just from comfort level.
From the North American side. And we'll get there in a sec. I bring Sean in for a second in that, just to the same kind of question I posed to you, Mark, in that people look at it at first going, the Premier League, and it'd be interesting to see some people, but those are the dark geeks like me, you, and Mark bemoan that stuff. The people that watch these, the Players Championships and every single Premier League, those are the people that have seen those top players. And hey, granted, when they're playing at their best, it's always compelling to watch. But those are the only types of people that could get bored at, or have a distaste that it's going to be all 8 Premier League players. This is, these are non, insane dart fans that are going to be at the Garden or who are going to be paying attention to this. So there is a lot of value to just go completely shoot for the stars and bring in the biggest names in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it creates kind of an underdog story, right? You have hey, we're going to bring our absolute best. Good luck, because they are the absolute best. And it creates that underdog story. We saw it last year with Jeff Smith, right? I did not get to go to the U.S. Darts Masters last year, and I am still to this day so upset that I was sitting in a hotel room at a dart tournament playing darts myself instead of at Madison Square Garden watching the darts when Jeff Smith hit that 167. I mean, I wanted to. We ran around our hotel room yelling. I think that the people next to us maybe thought there was a murder or something next
I've
door.
ever experienced.
I mean, it's so cool to be there in person is so cool, but to get to see someone like Luke Littler, right? So new to the game, so new to the spotlight, but he automatically is so compelling that you have him there, and it's automatically, top-notch darts for whoever is facing him. And you feel bad for whoever has to play the 17-year-old right out the gate. I mean, when we watch the Premier League, isn't there always a thought that runs through our head as North Americans that are like, man, I wish the Premier League would just come here? Guess what? It's happening this year, so you can't really get upset about it.
There's always chatter in a lot of forums, that they should bring a full Premier League to MSG and stuff. That's been talked about for a long time. But to both of you, that it's legitimate to continue to talk about the Littler effect. Like, to me, them including Luke Littler in this event completely broadens the regional area to me of people considering to come in, right? Like, now we think, right, between all three of us, that just having Van Gerwen or just having Price or Humphreys, right, is enough that you're 7 hours away. All three of us would get in the car, right? But that may not be the case. But to what Luke Littler did in the World Championship and all the press he got, for him to now be at MSG, if you're at the outskirts of Western Pennsylvania, Michigan, up in New England, down in the Atlantic seaboard, like, it's really, I think, a domino to move somebody to really make that move, to make the investment and come on and make that trip. Right? Mark?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, you're good. You couldn't not bring him. It's the same even with the Premier League. In all honesty, there's moments in sport, and if you're good enough, you're old enough, and that's where he's at, and he just keeps proving it. And I don't want to say that people are even more intrigued to see if and when. I don't know. I don't think when. Suddenly there's a light bulb goes off and it's like suddenly he's back to being a 17-year-old standard again. But the intrigue is there, and it's broadened beyond the hardened dart fan that understands how many titles, Van Gerwen, Price, Wright have won between them and could answer all the trivia questions. They're there. They've bought the tables.
That's where we're going next. So we'll go to that fun stuff about titles and who's winning what, who should be winning what, and how much the kid can win. We're going to get there next. So
I didn't know that.
Let's get Sean.
I was just going to say, along with the Littler effect, I've always been a huge fan of Pat McAfee. I mean, he's an Indianapolis Colt first and foremost, so hometown person for me. But his show to have 10 minutes at a time just dedicated to what Luke Littler's doing, to his millions of viewers on ESPN, it's so big in the grand scheme of things for darts in North America to just have anyone showing any coverage of that. So I'm a Luke Littler fan because he is bringing more eyes to the sport, that you, especially in North America, where you thought it would have to be a North American to really kind of turn that extra gear. But I think that Luke Littler's doing it on his own as a 17-year-old, and just how good of a 17-year-old he is.
Thank you, Mr. Sean, for a great segue, because I've got my notes here. I meant to do it in the first episode. I am a big fan of the Pat McAfee show. So we're going to, right here, right now, we're going to call out social media-wise. So we hope people who listen to this, go tag them, get them in here, get them watching. So at Pat McAfee show, right? Yeah, and then you want to tag both halves of the toxic table. Bonk! At Boston Connor, at Ty Schmidt. Tag them in here. These are the guys that are fully aware of what's going on with Littler. Like Sean said, they've played a bunch of clips not only from the World Championships, but like last week at the Premier League. So these guys are aware. So let's be those social media pests about tagging them. And you boys at the Pat McAfee Show, we want you at PopCon. We want you to come on down, have a great time at the cross border. We are right in the state of Indiana. And then, of course, the big kahuna there, we got your boy Luke Littler coming to MSG. So we want Pat McAfee and the boys at the toxic table at MSG. So thank you for that there Sean. So one other point that Mark brought up about how do you not bring Littler, right? You've got to bring him to there. Now, it's not unsubstantial that the companies and the broadcast partners that are putting on these World Series events that are writing checks, they want Luke Littler. It's right. There's no shame in that. This is a business, and as Mark said, it's entertainment and it's business. It's the business of entertainment. So the brightest star right now is Luke Littler. So if you think that the partners of the PDC that are putting on these events haven't made it clear, then you're sadly mistaken. And if you want to come to New York before we, move on to the players who are going to play those PDC players, right now you can get a great deal at the New Yorker Hotel through the CDC. Use that link that we've got there. You can also get it at champdarts.com. Of course, you can get all that info. So you can stay right there, right near MSG, and join us for the PDC U.S. Darts Masters and North American Championship. And that's where we'll go. Like Mark was saying, we've got, not only this stellar lineup on the PDC side, but now it's another chance for the North American community to shine. For 8 players from North America get to compete against those 8 players from the PDC on Friday night. And the buzz all Friday night is just electric on, who's coming out next for the PDC, who do we have that are going to play them, and the excitement and buzz in the room. And then on Saturday, as DJ Sayer said years ago, is the work for those North American players. They get to compete against each other with a spot, at the World Championships. So that weekend, there's a lot to work on for those North American players. So let's talk about, Mark, take your direction. You were leading us there a little bit. We know who's in already. The, established PDC card holders in Campbell, Van Dong, and Lauby stole bunts by winning the Continental Cup. Gets the invite. And then we've got these qualifiers. So give us your take on, whatever you want to do, either those guys or the amount of amazing names that I didn't just say that are all going to be competing in a qualifier, right?
Yeah, there's so many ways to go. The one thing that I will say is I love the way the qualifiers are set up with there being a place for the overall order of merit for the 2 days. I think that's really, really impactful for how that event will go, based, in addition to the 2 overall winners for the qualifiers, and then obviously the cross-border winner. I think about some of the potential matchups with the 4 that we know that are there, and I don't know, maybe the sort of the love matchup for me is Lauby versus Littler, and I know Lauby's not a youngster by Littler standards today.
Yeah,
but there's something romantic about that particular. Lauby may not necessarily want that matchup, to Sean's point, because I don't know many people that are going to volunteer to sort of guarantee 100
for a long
plus
time
averages.
though. He's been our kid. We've a lot of us have seen him grow
in
up. So
everyone's
I get
eyes,
that
he's still,
sentiment. Yeah,
in many people's eyes, he still is. He's got a beautiful family of his own, but still, it's like, the kid Danny Lauby doing us good. But if we switch gears and we move into people that could come in there and cause lots of damage, we haven't mentioned Jeff Smith yet, who's eerily out there in the wings, probably Not probably. I'm sure he's already filled up his calendar on what he's going to attack over the next.
You know that there's some determined darts being thrown in the Smith household with these qualifiers squarely in mind.
Yeah. We saw Gates. We saw what he's capable of on that stage. He's another one that has probably got his, not probably, but will have his eyes set on a return there. Alex Spellman, we know Cameron.
Jim Long.
Yeah. The one thing about this stuff is you get insulted by the names that you don't mention versus complimented by the names that you do. And it's not at all meant that way. You start going through the list and you run out of time,
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking of the rankings and I'm like, Butler's still ranked 10th and, exactly. It's not meant to, we're just having fun here. We don't have a list in front of us. So it's not meant that, if somebody doesn't get mentioned and that's actually the fun that and the excitement and the unknown that Mark has touched on that, these qualifiers that you just never know that it's going to be a deep, rich field of players that, a lot of players are going to have a chance to be the last one standing. And it's a tough hole, these qualifiers, but it's a great opportunity. So Sean, who do you think is, maybe coming in a little hot for these qualifiers? Maybe somebody we haven't mentioned and, or, what things do you see going into MSG for the North American side?
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for all those 4 players that are already qualified for it. I think that they're also excited for it, which is also really cool. You mentioned a few big names there. Alex Spellman, of course. Jacob Taylor's another one that, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention with how good he's been playing the past couple of years. But my favorite thing ever is that there's going to be someone who is in these qualifiers that we least expected. Like I said, we had Doug Boehm year 1, we had Jake McMillan year 2. Who's going to be that guy who's, real under the radar that's going to come in there and get qualified, because it's happened every year so far. So I'm looking forward to that person because I want to see how they perform on that stage. JT Davis, right? Last year.
Yep.
And
credit to those guys. And credit to those guys that they performed well. They performed well, not just in that spot, as you said, to earn that, but then when they got the chance at MSG, I mean, Doug Boehm, really set the tone. He opened up Friday and the room was crackling and it seemed to never stop. JT Davis and Jake McMillan have, played well in MSG and then played well when they got chances to go over to Modus. So, it wasn't just a flash in the pan for those guys. It's a chance to get established and opportunities to stay established and to earn a name, create a name for yourself, I should say, right?
Exactly. And that's the cool part, right? Is that they're able to take these opportunities. So I'm going to tell you right now that the players that have already been on that stage before that are not qualified right now, those are the players that are going to be itching the most to really get those qualifying spots. So if I had to pick between, all those different players, I'm going to say that maybe 2 out of 3 go to players that have already made the MSG stage before, just because I know that they're going to be fighting the hardest to get back there.
So now let's have a little fun. All right, let's get back to the PDC big boys and sort of a historical thing. So I'll start the conversation with our friends over at Online Darts on Monday at their live lounge. To fill a little bit of the day, they put up a poll, based on, Anderson had a great, Barney had a great day in the first Players Championship 5. He won the day, and Anderson had a good day. And this poll went up on the second day before Gary, withdrew with an injury. But it was knee jerk right now, both of you, on your all-time list. Who's ranked higher, Barneveld or Anderson? Sean.
Barney.
Okay. Mark?
Anderson.
Okay. And that's okay that it went 50-50. The poll, ultimately, Anderson, it was a poll that they did all day long. Good couple hundred people. Anderson had a big lead early, but it eventually landed at somewhere like 53-54% Anderson. And I think Mark just touched on it a little bit. I think it all depends on how much weight you want to put into his for Barney's perspective, how much weight you put into the 4 BDO championships, and how disappointing, now here's my editorializing a little bit, how disappointing you see post first year in PDC was. You know, he gets Taylor at UK Open, gets Taylor in the Worlds, but then Taylor pretty much gets him from that point on. And Barney doesn't win 3 PDC championships. It's the 1 World Championship. So I think that is where it goes on how you see that. I voted Anderson. I'll do the tie break between the three of us. Yeah, I gave it a Gary. I mean, and if you're talking about a list, it's not as if Barney, if you do put one or the other guy is going to be the next guy on your list, or maybe 2 spots down, right? It's not going to be that they're going to be far. But it was just a good little interesting thing. So then that got me thinking. So let's throw that one card out. Now we get into the much deeper stuff. Now,
that was
Mark and I.
Deeper stuff?
Yeah.
The deep, no, that wasn't it. No,
Great.
The deep fun stuff. His legacy was going to be in reflection to, let me see, got the shirt. Where is it? Oh, it's underneath here. The big man, the GOAT,
there you go.
Phil Taylor.
It's on your shoulder.
You know, yeah, exactly. He's up there. There you go. And then my other guy, Eric. But in terms of, Van Gerwen's, how he's going to be seen, in history. Obviously, we know what his talent level is. We know how he can go on tears and he can dominate. But yet, at this point in time, he's got 3 world championships. Okay, and I guess again, it all depends on how you really think about Van Gerwen, whether you see that as it's way short or it's right where it should be. But my sort of proposal now is, there's a new fox in the hen house, and he's a 17-year-old kid, and I think he's going to start winning titles pretty soon in quick order, and I think he's going to win them in bunches. So part of the conversation, and I'm going to give, I wrote up a couple of different things in that. I think Van Gerwen's got to move his butt. And get a couple more world titles to round off that thing. Another nugget Mark and I talked about, I remember proposing that his counter to Taylor was going to be his Premier League wins. Like, what is he up to? Like 7 now, I think, Van Gerwen? Something like that. So that was going to be his resume builder, But, Van Gerwen hasn't even gotten to Barney yet. We know that that's a big goal of his, is to get the 5, but he's at 3. So, I guess I want your perspective on, I've got some names. I want a perspective on Littler's 17, of course, right? But I'm a believer, and I think it's coming, and it may, Mark, you touched on it. At what point does the 17-year-old show back up, right? Or, and if it does, how long does it take him to kind of get back through that? Just life stuff, right? So it won't be unexpected if there's a spot where it's, he's in his 20s and establishes a family or anything like that. And you see it with all Tiger Woods. Everybody has gone through that. A lot of all-time greats, but I think the potential is there. And then the other thing is, it's about Van Gerwen. Where is Van Gerwen sitting in his career? And then again, looking at when he's finished, where that's going to look at. And I'll get that from both of you guys. And then I've got like a look at the next 20 years on how difficult it's going to be. So Mark, give me your take on those 2 things, Littler and Van Gerwen.
I'll start with Van Gerwen because he's done some of the things you've just alluded to with Littler. He's got the family, he's got the kids, he's got the high school sweetheart that's now his sort of lifelong partner. His biggest challenge will just be motivation, real motivation, beyond the sort of the Van Gerwen bravado of everyone knows I'm the person to beat. The reality will be sort of when it comes to, do I want to travel 40 weeks a year? Do I want to actively sort of be involved in everything have I still got that sort of thing in me where we've seen players start to pick and choose, they start to drop off, they're not game ready, despite what they might say, because we've seen it with the Andersons saying, "Oh, the practice."
I was just going to say, the aforementioned Gary Anderson's a great example.
There's multiple players that have gone into that world where they, the phrase that they use is they manage their calendar, and that's fine. But there's no two ways about it. If you're not playing with those top 48 killers in the PDC week in, week out, and the standard now is just way deeper, way better. The stats will tell you that on any one day, you don't know who's going to win one of those, PDC Tour championships behind closed doors because of the standard. If Van Gerwen wants to just continue really being at the pinnacle of that, motivation is key for him. And I think still to this day he's got that, but he's probably through the life stuff, to quote you, Anthony. Maybe he'll have more kids, maybe he won't. And I think there's potential where he could do 20 years dedicated to darts and could be sort of dominant back again in the cycle. But
yeah, absolutely. The time is there. I mean, because traditionally, darts hasn't been solely a young man's game, right? It has been a sport that has allowed players to continue to excel, certainly into their 40s and in their 50s. So it's not as if, from an age perspective, he has major constraints. I think you touched on a big thing. It's a desire and a will to continue to go through all that grind, to relay it to other sports. I always remember, and I'm not talking about that Van Gerwen's anywhere close to retiring, but I remember hearing, John Elway talk about the reason that he retired. It wasn't necessarily that he didn't think he could compete on Sunday, but he just didn't have the desire, his body and his will to go through the training camp and all the work that it takes to get you to Sunday. So I watch players as they retire, and you could see that sense. I could still perform. I don't want to put in all that other work. So like you said, all of that, the travel and all the stuff that goes behind going into those World Championship opportunities.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but I think he's got a. Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly in the next 20 years, like there's going to be chances that there's peaks still to come for Van Gerwen, and they come. It's not as I don't mean to make it sound like they're not there, but I'm talking specifically from the World Championship, right? And you talk about desire. What's his desire to be? How does he want to be perceived historically, like in any sport, for good or bad? Because the conversations happen all the time. Probably a lot more in baseball. I think baseball, it's tougher to get a World Series. So you get players that have wonderful careers, 18, 20 years, great batting average, pick up 2 MVPs, but they're not seen in the same light because they don't have a World Series win, right? So at the end of the day, sports is about championships, whether some fans like it or not. So, at the end of the day, is Van Gerwen seen differently if he's, 7th on the all-time list of world championships, or if he's in the top 2 or 3, right? And we'll give Sean let's give Sean a chance to get in there.
And I think that you hit it right on the head, Mark, that it's going to be a lot more about motivation for him than anything else. Now you're starting to see a little bit injury stuff pop up for him on top of that with the shoulder and things like that. And that's going to be wear and tear, because you're really trying to push your body to the limit, especially he is, because he knows he has a 17-year-old that's getting all the talk and all of the, he's going to be the greatest of all time. And you're just the old thing now. And I think that might motivate him a little bit, at least every time he plays Luke, to bring his best. And I don't know if that's enough to motivate him, but usually the greatest of all time needs some sort of protagonist, right, or antagonist, in order to kind of keep pushing them to that level. Now, Phil Taylor is a freak of nature who he was just like, you're going to be the antagonist this time, and then you're going to be the antagonist this time. And he just decided to make anyone who was against him that person. So I don't think MVG is as ruthless as that. So he's got to try and find that person that's going to push him, and it might be Littler.
I literally was about to say the same thing. The one thing that Van Gerwen's got in his armory is he's got an arrogance in a good way, where he wants to be always perceived as the best externally and internally. And when the people like the Lukes, and I have to say, shout out to Luke Humphreys, because what a player that shares the same first name to someone and does not deserve to be overshadowed because he's slightly older. It blows my mind, given the year and a half that he has had. But they're the players that I think spark Van Gerwen into, oh, this is where the bar is now. Not only can I compete at that bar, but I'll show them a thing or two. To your point, Sean.
Well, but okay, so but those are also the players, though, that that I want to lay out that could take some of that oxygen, what little oxygen is left in the room for Van Gerwen, right? So let's take that 20-year perspective that we just talked about. Let's say he's got, not that he has 20 years, but let's look at the next 20 years, right? So, my perspective, I'm going to put out that, to me, I think Littler's, like I said, going to start winning them, and we're going to see again a little burst. We're going to again see a player able to win maybe 3 in a row, something like that. All right. So I think Littler's floor is 7 and his ceiling is 12. So
wow.
And I'm putting that in the 20 years, right? So, but even if we want to go 7, but so now let's look at who's out there, right? So we've got 20 world championships to come. You got a guy like Michael Smith and Luke Humphreys, right? You got to figure I'm going to give them 3 between the two of them. Like, I think at least they're going to win 1 apiece. To me, akin to Anderson, Wright, Price, right? Or the guys that Price has only won once, right? He hasn't won 2.
Right.
It's only won 1. So Price, Anderson, Lewis, the guys that have won 2. So there's a few that are off the table. The Price I just mentioned, though, the older guys, I'm calling them Price, Anderson, Cross, Wright. Maybe Wade finally gets one. There's a little group that maybe they nick 2 or 3. Right? You could see Price winning another world championship. You can see Rob Cross winning a world championship. Maybe Peter Wright's got to get his form. But I'm just saying, that group, you could maybe another couple, right? Then you've got a group that's tell me you would be shocked if one of these players became, the one-offs that they have the year, they have the tournament. Cullen, Aspinall, Hedda, Doby, Bunting, Vandenberg, right? That's a group of 6. Maybe there's 3 in there, right? So now we've taken possibly 9 out of 20 off the table. So that this is now setting up my proposal that things are getting tight for Van Gerwen to finish where, if you believe that he's the all-time great that he is, like, where should he be? He's got 3. Should he be at 7? Should he be at 8? What's the number, and how many more opportunities does he have with all of those players in there that are prospective, winners and bulk winners? So, Mark, I see you shaking your head like how many more does he need to be, the GOAT or in the conversation?
I think he's already in the conversation because the standard's different from when Taylor did it. He would like more, and it would look great on his resume. But if he keeps being relevant and winning match plays, Premier Leagues, Grand Prix, running deep in the World Championship, the argument just is always, it's just like, oh, him again. Like he's like the There's 4 players in tennis, and just because they don't win the majors, You don't go, oh, he's not that exciting.
They all do. I mean, Djokovic now is what, 18, 19, something like that. But Nadal's over 10, isn't he?
Yeah. He's what,
but I'm just saying,
alone, so. But that's what I mean.
Well,
so
tell me
who the greatest tennis player is then, because of how many majors they've won. Is it Federer? There you go.
If you want me to give you an answer, no. But
you did. I said Federer before you did.
You've got. I mean, it's a little different in that you've got you got 4 opportunities every year as opposed to 1. So let me pull back a little bit. Those numbers are easier to achieve when you've got right in you got 20 years, you've got 80 opportunities to win a major, right? So where
I would disagree, because Van Gerwen would argue that the Premier League's just as important to win than the World Championship. He said it multiple times, and I actually don't know if I disagree with him. And I know he's a little bit biased because
in that regard, I don't disagree.
He keeps winning them,
and that was my proposal. Remember, I was the one who offered that up. Like, to me, that's going to be his counter: is an overwhelming amount of Premier Leagues. To sort of balance out some. So I think But
to your answer your question, I think he gets 2 more. I think he gets 2 more minimum. I can't see how he doesn't, unless injuries.
But even still,
family.
I mean, in 20 years. So I know Sean's a student. So what do we got? 2 in 20 years. What is that? A 10% winning percentage, or
that would be exactly a 10% win percentage.
All right, I didn't even need to take off my shoes and socks. I got it right. But I'm just if in his heart of hearts, would he be if you could put like they say, the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around him, would he be disappointed in just 2 more World Championships in the next 20 years?
And 6 more Premier Leagues and 5 more match plays and whatever else he wins. I
think I am willing to. I should know off the top of my head his match plays. I think if he got, where do you guys know? And I'm sure we can get in the chat. That'll tell us.
I think it's at least.
Did you say 3? Okay, I would want to see that to me. That's where you want to see him again. But I know the competition is, as much as I am a Taylor guy. The fields are gnarlier, the fields are deeper, and and the match play, by most accounts, I mean, we know how difficult the match play is to win. That's what, to me, also makes Taylor 16. I mean, that's always, it's right away, it's pros against pros. Is the World Championship is prestigious, but that match play is 32 of the absolute best. But I would at the end of the day, I would want to see him creeping near double digits on that match play but again, this is just to have fun. But the people who believe in Van Gerwen think he's somewhat there already, and you've said it. So
yeah, I think he's not yet, but he's got time on his side. He's still on the positive window of the top 4. He's still in the positive window of the top 4.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be in that area. It's when you start to slide. Like, I'll mention a name here, and it blows my mind to say this in the context. Adrian Lewis. When you start to go down a path of not getting results, everything you're defending money-wise is now a bag of coal on your back. Your family stuff gets in the way. Injuries get in the way. Suddenly, no matter what you did in the past and with all the best intentions of the world, it's just, it's a mountain to climb. So if you can stay on the right side of that, I say top 4, but even the top 10, top 8, always be in contention for the Premier League, and then always be in a position where you're running deep in the majors. It's
that like you said, that perilous downside momentum is equally as strong as the upside momentum. So right now he's still in that upside churn, like you said, of the PDC system. Of as long as you stay in that 8, 10, even 16 gets you all of the big events, that keeps the money on the account, and so on and so forth. So Sean, you meant? Yeah, he's 34, right? Is that what you mentioned?
He's 33 or 34. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but yeah, so he's got plenty of time. I mean, you think about when Peter Wright won his first, right? Obviously, it's a completely different scenario, but the one thing that I would say with MVG as he's already one of the greatest of all time. I think that can be said. He's in probably the top 5 ever at this point in time, just from what he's accomplished so far. And, if he does continue to raise that bar and put up those scores, I mean, one of the greatest stats is that he's played in 11 world championships and 9 of them he's made the top 4. And the only 2 that have knocked him out have been COVID test and Dave Chisnell. Other than that, he's been right there in the world championship. So even those deep runs for such a deep field now, that's even impressive, right? So you got to think about that. And I guess RMVB in the top 16 that in 2018 for sure. But so maybe it's 3 of them. I guess he hasn't made it to. But yeah, it's insane. His run.
Yeah, he's a force. He's always going to be a force. I'm just having fun with the, end of the day stat geek stuff, when because I see a lot of it now. It's what makes sports and sports media and sports talk churn. Right now Ovechkin is, approaching Gretzky's goal record. He's got, I think he just put together 19, 20 seasons of, 20 or 40 in a season or something like that. And he's, and it's a matter of looking at, I love the Gretzky stat of if he took away every single goal he had, he still has enough assists to be the all-time points leader. So to me, Taylor's match plays are like Gretzky's assists in a way. You could take away the world championships, he still got 16 match plays, for goodness sakes.
It's gonna be tough to knock Taylor off of the pedestal as the greatest of all time. I mean, 16 world championships will never be touched. All those match plays will never be touched. And yes, it was a completely different field, completely different experience for a lot of that. But he was the one who created that level of play that then players now are reaching, right? He was the one who set that bar. He was so much better than everyone else for such a long time that players just had to play better. And that's where you get the field that we get now and the deep level of players that we get now. And it's why, earlier I said Barney, it's because he's created such a big influence in the Netherlands that I don't think Anderson's done the same thing for. And so for the game of darts, I think that Barney's legacy is a bit bigger because of that. And so that's where I go with that, is that, I mean, Taylor was the one who set the bar for everyone to reach. And so it's going to be hard to knock him off that pedestal as the greatest of all time, numbers wise for sure. But I think in what he has done for the game itself, I think that's going to be difficult for anyone to really kind of reach.
Fair enough. And I think, and I'll give you that. That was sort of it's also a point, how you wanted to take certain players and what their impact was for, Barney was, he changed a nation from a darting standpoint. The players that we see now are because of what Van Barneveld did, but it's just, to make it cliched and corny, but it's who wins? Darts wins, right? But it's because you got all of these great players, and so it's going to be an exciting 2 decades to watch. And it just, as I started to think about it, to jot down some of these names, I think it's preposterous to not see, what we were talking about, Luke Humphreys, like his potential is just insane. So to not see him potentially put up another couple of world championships, and Smith. So it's just the depth and talent is wonderful in the game. And that's pretty much the bottom line. And MVG is going to be there in the conversation, as he should be. So that was fun, guys. So let's bring it on home. We do have 2 questions, I'm told, from the chat room. So let's check out what we've got, and we'll see if we can have some fun. So from Steve Hilger, do you think U.S. Masters has picked up enough momentum to be moved from Vegas to MSG? I'm taking that question as, has it been justified? So I'm going to editorialize. I think that's missing. Do you think, the momentum has justified the decision? So Mark, what say you?
I say from a business standpoint, being on the East Coast, you're going to get people flying in that necessarily weren't going to fly in from the UK and Ireland to go the whole way to Vegas, and I don't think that's lost on the PDC. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was a a nice sort of business decision. I think as a spectacle, Vegas lends itself more to what we talked about. You got 20 million tourists out there. You get a ticket for $25 and you've got a Saturday afternoon, you're at a loose end. You might pop in. You might not even know a single player that's on the stage. But as an actual sporting event, I think MSG now has actually taken over. I think the standard that sort of Sean alluded to last year, the drama that was put into the tournament last year, and the promotion that both the CDC and the PDC have put into it on the grassroots level and then on the international level has taken it to the next level. I think it's now a solid stop on the World Series sort of tour for the PDC and will be for the foreseeable future.
I will push back. I'll push back a little bit on your opening part in this sense that about the UK and European attendance. That was a large driver of what was in Europe. That was a large, the overwhelming portion, I should say, of the attendees, the people that were in the crowd. It was, they sold a lot of packages in the UK to come over and watch the darts. So, you had more of them than you did North American fans, and I think at the end of the day, that's still a nice percentage to have. Any ticket is a good ticket to sell. Don't get me wrong, but that they needed it to be at a certain point not the core audience. So I think moving it to the MSG, at the theater of MSG, that now in a wonderful way is a predominantly North American audience. Like I'm sure there might be a large percentage of not only people traveling over, like you said, much more easier to take a flight from Heathrow to JFK. And then, of course, the large contingent of expats from UK and Ireland that are on the East Coast, but I think the percentage, it's a North American audience, and that's what I think that they ultimately wanted to get to. They could have maybe continued in Vegas at that certain level, but to break through, it needed to be an actual North American audience. So, because I was in those rooms, there were some great fans, but it was exactly what it was. It was UK people, Ireland people that were coming over half a vacation, and we love the darts, so we'll pop into the darts, but it wasn't turning the needle. And I think just the prestige of being in that MSG building was invaluable. I don't even know if the PDC calculated how big of a move that was going to be. I'm sure they suspected it, but yeah, no, Sean, your take on that, on justifying it from Vegas to New York. We lost your mic. We'll get Sean back in a sec. No, and let's not make it as if there wasn't any pluses to Vegas, right? I mean, those of us who attended, the Vegas was great. It was, the nature of Vegas in that, when you're at if you're at the Mandalay, the darts is at the Mandalay, everyone's staying at the Mandalay. There's a good chance you're going to see, like people did, Price at the blackjack table or Peter Wright at the pool, so it's a wonderful experience like that. And I'll always, it's a couple of years now, so I'll sort of say, I've been telling this joke privately, but now I'll say publicly a little bit. I'm born and raised in New York. That was a great trip every year to head out to Vegas. So I was kind of bummed. I'm like, I don't want to see it come to New York. Like, I don't get a nice trip. I just get a train ride down to the city. So I loved Vegas, but again, I think to move the sport, it needed to be moved, and people doubted it, but ultimately the PDC got proven correct. do we have Sean's mic back? We'll try Sean.
We should.
Boom.
Are we good?
We're ready to go.
Yeah. Man, it's nice to know that I can just get out of VMix, get right back in, and it works. Yeah, I accidentally unplugged my mic, and it just resets. So anyway, I digress. I was just going to say, I was going to piggyback off of what you said earlier, Anthony, is that the brilliance of bringing it to the East Coast is, if we're just being honest, East Coast is where steel tip darts thrives. I mean, it is where, American darts is. It's where DPNY that grew so big, compliments of Anthony, and just all up and down the East Coast is, Minutemen Dart League. It's so many players that want to come in to MSG, especially a venue like MSG, Madison Square Garden. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
To watch darts. And so I think it's much easier for a lot of predominantly steel tip fans and steel tip players to also get there. So I think that was a huge push towards the North American audience. I don't know if that was what it was thought about beforehand. I was not involved in those meetings, but if it wasn't, it was a brilliant coincidence.
Yeah, it's completely different trips in a way. New York and Vegas. It's going to be, Vegas is going to give you a lot more external things, so the experience is going to be more rounded. We're going to go to a show. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're in New York. I mean, it's still New York. Let's not get wrong. You're Broadway. You got a million things to do, but it's just slightly different than the Vegas experience. So it is more centered on, you got a lot more people. You come to the venue, have a great time at the darts, and that's kind of it. Then you go your separate ways. A lot less meeting points than in Vegas. And again, it worked. Both of these guys have been in the room. I've been in the room. It was pleasantly magical. I hope that comes across right. You hope and pray that the light bulb is going to go off, and it did, and it's grown from the first to the second year. So like what this year has in store, I don't even know that I'm ready for. So it's truly going to be magical, I think. And we've laid it all out for everybody. I mean, between the players and the players that are going to come from North America and just the whole field, and it's the fans. The fans finally get what it means to come. And as Mark said much earlier in the evening, to make it a night of entertainment and just have fun with it and just like let loose, have a good time. And by the end of it, everybody's just walking out going like, this was brilliant, and I can't wait to come back. So let's go to our second question. So from Nick DeShera, specifically for North American players, where do you three draw the line on what makes a dart player a professional? So he's asking each of our opinions on what makes a dart player a professional for North American players. And this could be a real dicey one. So let's see if we can come up with something for him.
You guys go first.
I'll go for, if you guys aren't ready, I'll go for Mark, you ready with something, or you want me to fill for a minute?
I think Sean knows Nick.
Oh, we got to
I'm still going to go last. I'm going to go last.
I'll lead from my perspective, and for someone who's also involved with the championship darts circuit. And I say it that way because it was on purpose. You don't see professional in there. Do we coin ourselves as, we conduct ourselves with professionalism, a professional style tour. We put on the best level in North America that we can. But from my perspective, until we're putting in the preponderance of money into a player's bank account, we're not a professional tour yet. So to me, it comes down to money. I know the term is thrown around a lot based on skill level. You go to the Sheboygan Open and it's like, oh, the pros are there. Well, they're really good players, but are they professional? I've always contended no. Now I know though, there are players who make their living by darts, right? Whether it be they earn enough sponsorship, they work with enough companies, or and or tied to prize money. And we know the big names that's what they've done, and they've done it. Some have done it for multiple decades now. So they earn their living by playing darts here in North America. But does that a professional make? I'm not sure. So from my perspective, I was treading lightly from throwing that term around when we created what we're running. It was let's be cautious about how we present this. We're extremely high level. We're bringing you championship level darts. We're bringing you the best of the best. But the professionals, there's 128 professionals, and they play in the UK, and that's my take.
I can chime in if you want.
Yeah.
Professional is a big word, and it's overused in certain instances. Not even just darts. Someone buys themselves a jersey and sticks a patch on it, and suddenly the term might be thrown out there by them or by someone that's through perception. I think the reality for me is, if that's their number one and only source of how they make a living and feed their family and pay their mortgage, they could classify themselves as a professional dart player. There might be nuance to that. There might be a couple of years where that's sustainable for certain players because things go okay. You've got a tour card for a little bit. Maybe even if you don't, if you're just here in the States, the travel dries up. You can't fund a way of living. We've seen it with multiple players, people coming from Australia to the PDC, couldn't quite do it. We've had people from other countries try to, you got to find a way to pay your bills, do the thing that you want to do is your dream, but the word profession is in the word professional. It's a profession. It's your career, and it's your day-to-day vehicle of making your way in the world today. Takes everything you got.
I saw that coming.
I was getting a bit sort of hypothetical there, but the key to that is profession. It's not go to a couple of tournaments, be good, throw 80 averages when everyone else is throwing 65 averages. Wear a shirt that, you slap your name on the back of it, which is great. I no problems against that. There's way more elements to being a professional athlete, professional sports person, and
as you say, I wouldn't fight somebody on if they earn their complete living or 90% of their living through dart sponsorships, company. If there's outside entities in darts that are paying their way and also they're earning, and they put on their taxes professional dart player. Like I wouldn't put up a fight. I wouldn't call them a liar or that's not true. That's like you said, that's how they make their living, and if they can coin themselves professional dart player. But it in a way, what you're saying is it falls on parties like myself and my partners to build the platform for them to get an opportunity to even, like you said, garner a profession. Like if there's no car built, you can't drive the car. So we've got to build a platform that you can then make it you can ply your trade. If you're, one guy with a spackle bucket, right? You're not a bricklayer, but you need a building to, right? You need a union or a company now this is what your trade is. Now this is how you apply your living. So it's kind of on us to make this thing. We're building it and make it all happen. So what say you, Sean, on the question posed by Nick?
I mean, it's a great question first and foremost, Nick, and what my two colleagues here have said is absolutely the way that I would feel at the same time. I mean, there's 128 professional dart players in the world, and they are located in the UK, currently playing for the PDC. There's a couple of gentlemen here in North America that what they do is they play darts weekly, or they're coaching darts and doing it that way. And there's a way to make a living doing that and being a professional that way. but that's about it. That's about who I would call a professional at this point in time. And that doesn't take anything away from everyone else. I'm going to guess that they probably feel the same way, that they're not a professional dart player because that's not where their money comes from. So I'm definitely not a professional commentator. So I'm a professional teacher who does commentary on the side. So yeah, and I would feel the same way if it was that type of a situation. So yeah, you guys nailed it on the head. Absolutely.
We got one more question.
Well, we've got one more question before we head on out of here. So from Steve Warnock, a participant, by the way, in the upcoming Cross Border Darts Challenge. The Sniper asks, do you see any other big events being held in North America, maybe like a match play or even a North American Premier League would be cool? So, of course, a top-level player is asking for more top-level money. But good question, Steve. Should I let you guys first go, and then an actual organizer will chime in? So, could you see those events here? And honestly, because I just realized you may have a unique perspective. Do you think those could be accomplished here?
Do you want to go first, Sean? I know I've been.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
So, given the question that's up there, I don't see a Premier League. North America's too big. Travel would be just incomprehensible to try and get whatever it is, 8 people to move around between Canada and North America, and a little trip down to Central America, plug for Jeff Good and everything that's going on there. Potentially. That
guess
could
if
be
we have to go to Jamaica.
I don't think the Premier League is something that would, unless their mega money comes in somewhere and lots of doors open. But something like the match play, I think would be amazing. And I think it's very conceivable in the near future that something like the match play could happen. I know it's a passion of Anthony's to play with some of these formats. And I know in the summer series and things like that, it's been dabbled with. But on a big stage, big venue, big prize money, there's definitely legs to that type of tournament. With the traction that things are going here, that we see. No clue when. I won't commit the CDC to that because I don't earn any of the sort of rights to those meetings. But I would love for that to be a thing.
He doesn't have the key to the executive washroom.
Is there one? What?
It's a porta potty around back.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it was like the first key you guys gave me. No, I would say hopefully is the right answer to that question, right? Hopefully there's other big events that are held in North America, like a match play. I agree that probably a Premier League might be a little bit too hard to accomplish, but yeah, absolutely. I would love what a unique area where we can have like a cricket tournament that's done with the CDC that could be just different. That, when I was in Vegas a couple months ago, a lot of the UK players who came over, they so much enjoyed the game of cricket. I think more so than they thought that they were going to. It was Miss Hedman's first time playing cricket in 20 some years, she said, and absolutely enjoyed every second of it. So that'd be something that'd be cool,
Why'd
right?
you open up that can of worms?
Hey,
that's
listen,
another 10 minutes. I'm not even sure Mark remembers this, but there was a North American Cricket Championship that took place after the final of the Las Vegas Desert Classic, believe it or not. They would get off stage of a TV major and they would have a floor tournament on Sunday afternoon. It was a cricket event. Let's leave it. Let's convene again another episodes later and we'll talk about the cricket championship that was.
But yeah, listen, the point is that you have a lot of creative minds that, especially Anthony and company, that are behind the scenes that are really trying to create some cool opportunities for North Americans. And that's why it's such a privilege to be a part of this tour in my small way. And I'm sure Mark feels the same way, is that, we really feel like the people that are leading us in the right direction. So hopefully is the correct answer, Steve, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
Well, I probably should have answered a few minutes ago because I was in more of a lighthearted mood. And as I've sat here, I've got a little more stern, and I'll be a little more honest in the sense, not from Steve's perspective from a player, but from a dart community. If you would like to see things like that happen, you've got to support what's on the table now, right? So, I know everybody's into different sort of, players coming over and different things go around the country. And this is something else that needs to be supported. Like, so a ticket to the Continental Cup, a ticket to the cross border, it matters. It helps us to sustain what Steve's question is. Like, for us to get there, the stuff we're doing now has to work, right? So if you don't think that and they're nominal prices, folks. I don't know if we've got it down there, but you can get it on the site. I mean, you've got tickets at reasonable, probably down from like $35 up to 50, 60 for a VIP ticket. Not expensive tickets, but if you don't think you're $40 and then the effort, and that's a large part of it, the effort to come, be a part of it and be a part of that crowd matters. It matters greatly. So for us to get to that place, the things we're doing now have to work, right? So that's the sort of corporate part of me. It's, so that's that part. The fun part, absolutely, and you guys kind of nailed it, that much more of a match play is much closer than you would know. Like, that's absolutely a desire of us, some sort of an additional major. And again, it all ties together. We're blessed that we have some gaming that might get underway this year, right? So if the gaming starts to unfold, that leads to a sponsor, right? You want a legitimate sponsor to these things. Is a crowd going to show up? Why, if we can't get a crowd to come to the events that we're putting on now, why are we going to book a place in, July or August and try and fill another room, a couple hundred tickets, right? But I can see something like that coming, as Mark said, much more down the pike than a Premier League. A Premier League as people know it, as a European Premier League. Could I see something where there's a collection of some of the best players in an organized fashion, maybe at one location over time, with betting going on? So a similar type Premier League, but in a modest style, maybe. Do you know what I mean? But to go from, 1 week in Boston, then the next week in Philly, and then Chicago, that's a very heavy lift. That I would not see happening for quite a while. So the boys pretty much got it right, but the desire to expand and offer those things are certainly there. They definitely are. So we have a desire to do that, because then that folds into the question prior. We do that. We expand tour events. We have a match play. We have a Continental Cup. Well, now, Mark, that's a profession. That's, you can, and the money is with it. Now, everybody now is putting on a professional tour. So that's all of these things connect, and that's the overall scenario. So to bring it all home, we'd love for you to join us for the Cross Border Darts Challenge, April 12th and 13th in Michigan City, Indiana. The information is at Champ Darts. There's hotel options, ticket options. It's a really great venue in a really lovely town. It looks absolutely beautiful. So, and as the boys laid out, the talent that's going to be on stage, it's just brilliant. So we really do think we've got a wonderful weekend coming your way. So we want you to check out the Cross Border, and then the fun that's going to be PopCon. So go check out Champ Darts for that. You get the links over to popindy.com and see what PopCon's all about. And then we get into the other great stuff of weekend one qualifiers into New York. So a whole great package. Hope you've enjoyed the evening. It's been my pleasure to be here. And thank you for Sean Green and Mark Taggart for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to getting you boys corralled again and doing this again real soon. So looking over at the notes, just want to make sure that you follow us on all the CDC platforms. We're now on X and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitch and YouTube, and search at Champ Darts, and you can find our great content.
So thanks for joining me. My name's Anthony Eugenia, and we will see you again next month for Shooting the Bull.
Thanks for joining us for Shooting the Bull, the official podcast of the Championship Darts Circuit. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow us at Champ Darts on social media to keep up with all of the latest news on North American darts.